Yeah.
Okay, I think Tuesday appointed hour. We'll go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order.
That's all we got.
Let's take a look first at September 21, 2023 meeting minutes. A minute or so to do that. If you need, and then we'll call for.
We need to know.
Lily's on her way.
Okay.
Reviewed those prior to the meeting, and I would make a motion to approve.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. We are at the point then in the agenda for public comments about pretty much anything that anybody wants to say anything about, probably except the two items that are on the agenda on the business agenda for tonight. Anybody want to talk about anything else while you're here or while we're here? If not, then we will move on to business. Item number one, case 2023-08, AH District Zoning Overlay Application. Matt or Ben, can you fill us in, one or the other of you?
Yeah, I'll start and then Ben can jump in with all the technical stuff. So this is a revisit of our container home application. This would be the address on this I don't think is quite right. This is going to be directly west of the existing home on 3rd Street. I think we've got
That's correct, right?
address is flipped.
Okay.
So
To the west or
to the west.
To the west.
That's a change. That's a change.
Oh, okay,
from an earlier
Right.
proposal.
okay.
And so we've got the full packet, I think, and Ben, you can chime in if you disagree, but I think that the packet here is complete. We've got the renderings required, the site plan that's required. You've got a copy of all the blueprints that are required. Ben's taking time to go through those. And I would defer to you on some of the.
Yeah, I put a list of corrections out for everyone to see. It's the same list that I sent you. I'll take Lily's spot here until she comes in. So some of them are kind of just administrative. The code that's listed on your letter to me is different than the codes that's listed on the plans. So the plans have to reflect the code that we're under. So that'll be a change that will need to take place on the plan. All the windows up front, those will need to be safety glass, and that's not specified on the plan. So that was one of the corrections. That's one of the things that's going to need to be there. And then the other one is it's just kind of something I noticed. There's an error on the ISBU schedule. It shows 2 containers and the layout shows 3, but in fact, there's 5. There's 4. Yes, there is 5. Essentially.
Yeah, and the schedule also shows 2 of them as being 20-footers, and those should be
10 footers. Right. There's 3 40-footers, 1 20-footer that we're cutting in half. Oh, okay. You're not putting 2 10. It is a 20-footer that's getting cut in half. That's right. And the only reason that is because the 10-footers are so hard to come by. If we can find 10-footers, we'll use 10-footers. If not, it'll be a 20-footer cut in half, and we'll have the fabric. So we'll need to study the structure a little bit more. I was under the assumption it was 2 10-footers. Because when you cut those, and you're taking away all the integrity. You got to reinforce it. Yes. So there's that. Sanitary plumbing drawing shows a 2-inch pipe to the toilet, case 3/3 inch. That's pretty simple to fix. And then there's no smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors shown. It doesn't specify out AFCI breakers. Yep. So I submitted all that to the architect, and he's gonna input all everything that's required. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, and then the address change on the permit. So that's about where we're at. I'm very happy with the way that this is organized and and you've got an architect designing the whole thing. When you just mentioned that the architect was gonna make those changes, you know, that's what we want. That's what we were asking for. And so as far as, come on in, Lily. No. So we don't have a plan that's build ready right now. But we're, you know, discussing the corrections. They're very few and pretty easy to fix. So you can take it from there.
And for clarity, can you tell me the address again, the correct address?
It is 110
110.
East Third.
So I guess for us, if we would choose, can we approve base subject to these changes?
I think so. I
Believe you can, yeah. So this is actually a zoning change, so the plans are important and would need to be approved, because that's what you will be holding the builder to.
Right.
The recommendation from here will then go to the city council, so it would be like any other zoning change. And so we would hear that again at city council level, but yeah, you could approve the plan subject to Ben's approval, with whatever technical items you want to include on that. And yeah, I think that would be sufficient. I mean, there's probably gonna be things that, you know, ultimately change a little bit anyway, but one of the things we talked about was the drainage. The gutters have to daylight somewhere, so they have to be shown to daylight. There's small things like that too that'll probably need to be adjusted as time goes through this, but I think the substance of them is correct. If that,
Yeah, and that's allowable in the ordinance,
Mhm.
you know, for minor changes.
So what zoning change are we making?
This would
From
be a
R2
zoning
to
change. It would
R2?
go, it's an R2 right now. It would
R2
move
is
to
R3.
an AH, no, AH, Alternative Housing Zoning District, which is what we created to handle this type of housing,
Right.
barn dominiums, whatever kind of things that show up. So yeah, this is really a zoning change question.
So this is just west of the house that's out there now.
Correct.
So in what, about half of the space that's open there yet, or does this take up the whole? Is there one or two lots? Or
It's
It's
two,
one lots.
two lots before the house, but
It's-
one's,
what I
got a-
guess I didn't drive by. and
it's
look
got
at
a
it.
building setback that's way back for some reason.
Yeah, it's because there's an easement that runs through here. There's utility easement that runs here.
And this is lot two, so lot one has even more of that angle going
Yeah,
across.
it comes across in a funky way.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, this is the lot that we're gonna build. And this
There's
is
still
lot,
one more
it's
open.
gonna be difficult to.
Difficult. Because of the easement on the
That's
front.
my understanding, because that was where the gas.
So will this change zoning for the entire?
No, just this lot.
Just this lot.
Did your architect give you an idea of when he would have those changes back to you?
I could prioritize it. He's doing some other things for me, but I mean, probably before the first of the year, I could have him back, no problem.
Okay,
When would it go to the council?
It will not go to the council next week. It would go in January, so it'd be January 2nd.
I was wondering if we said that it had to be complete before it went to the council, if you would be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay, other questions from the commission before we open it up to anybody else's comments or questions? If not, we'll do that then. Anybody else that is here is free to comment or ask a question about the application. Leave it wide open for another minute or so, commission members or not.
Put it on Zoom. Have somebody join us on Zoom.
Looks of it.
Yeah.
Looks pretty sharp.
Well, yes, from what I'm seeing in the pictures. The place to park alongside it, and that's covered, right?
Yeah,
That's right. Do the top support beam, does it run the entire length on those inner walls?
Well, there's a couple, but the main support beam is a 4x6 steel box tube. And it sits on top of the container,
Right.
the actual container.
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Right.
Is that gonna run the entire length then?
Where needed. So there's. Let's see here. May I?
Yeah.
I'll just point up here, it'd be easier. So this wall here is actually the container wall.
Mhm.
So there'll be a structural beam that hits here with another post to support that. You don't need that beam through here because you're
Okay.
still utilizing the container string.
But you have a different beam for that span,
For this span?
for the living room span.
Yes. Yep.
And same thing on the other side, it's
Same thing over here.
the beam will be gone on that side over the bedroom and bathroom. or-
That's right. So it'll span, we'll have a post here and a post here, I believe it was. To
Okay.
span those distances.
For a different.
So we're
support.
trying to keep it within a 20-foot span or that structural reinforcement just gets so big.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. I didn't think you'd want to have a beam down.
Yeah, no, it's gonna
Down from the
be,
ceiling going through the living room.
yeah, you won't see it. It'll
Yeah.
be above the sheetrock line.
Okay.
Okay, other questions, comments? Are we ready to have a motion for action on the application?
I'd suggest that we approve it subject to these changes and the change on item 3 with the difference in the containers bin. This one shows two number 1 containers. The other one shows, or it should be 3 number 1s, and then it should be 1 20-foot. Get a 2 20-foot.
I'd second it. but-
Yeah, other than that, I'm good with. Well, I wasn't really making it as a motion, making it as a suggestion.
I'll second your suggestion.
I can make it a motion if you want.
I'll make the motion if he doesn't.
I'll move that we recommend approval of the alternate housing overlay. Provided that the corrections are made to the plans and if at all possible, before the city council meeting that considers it.
Second, still.
Motion and second, one more chance for questions or comments. If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion has carried. Thank you. Anything else you wanna?
Nope, thank you for your time. That means now this and it goes before the city council. You know, and then-
January 2,
I'm sorry,
January 2nd.
January 2nd.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as you can give me those revisions, I'll get them. All right, thank you, thank you.
And I said as soon as possible, so if, in your opinion, it's not possible. Right, you know,
Really just wait till the following council meeting, I suppose?
Yeah, I would move on to the second, which would be the 16th.
Okay, business item number 2, request from Hillsboro Community Hospital for zoning code changes. Get us up to speed on that if you would.
Yeah, so what I had is there's Mark Brooker, the CEO of the hospital, had sent a letter to actually the city council requesting that they consider a protective zoning approach for the hospital. There's been some issues in the city of Emporia with this where Emporia, let's see, it's whatever regional hospital, I can't remember the name of it now, like Newman Regional. They've got a situation where Stormont Vale out of Topeka is threatening to open up a whole new hospital in Emporia and then in an attempt to siphon off business from Emporia, from Newman Regional. So it's kind of sparked a conversation that we had a similar situation here with the Harrington Clinic. That clinic, and most people probably don't know it, but that clinic was designed to basically be a small hospital. The zoning code and the building code actually prohibits that in the CS zoning district, which is the Central Business District, C1. They didn't bother to ask any questions about that before they started doing it. So we told them that wasn't going to be something that was going to be possible. They endeavored to persevere and did it anyway. Now they're of course shut down. So that whole building is locked up in the situation with Enterprise Bank. So who knows? Who knows what exactly that's going to end up looking like out there. But so it kind of opens an opportunity that maybe we can consider doing something for hospitals, hospital specific. So right now, the zoning code allows for hospitals to be in commercial areas and then R2 zone. Some of the residential zoning actually allows it to its specific use that's outlined out there. City Council wanted to send this back to the Planning Commission for consideration. Of course, we have, to be completely transparent, we have a financial interest in the hospital, the Hillsboro Community Hospital. And the city has intervened on their behalf multiple times. And the current one, we have a Public Building Commission has outstanding bonds on there. So there is a financial interest at stake too. Learned a lot about how economics of small rural hospitals work. And so there's probably a reasonable need to do something about maybe protecting that hospital. I have received a few calls about not so much about the zoning issues or competition, more or less customer service issues about the current hospital. They were overbilled, the service wasn't good, these type of things. Those things are kind of, I would qualify those as kind of customer service related issues. Now, when you're talking about zoning and kind of how we could do that, one of the things that other communities have done is sort of restrict zoning for specifically hospitals. Newton is a good example of that. When Newton Medical Center came in, they did some zoning changes to make it to where there's only a specific hospital district. And that's kind of what, if we were to move forward with something like that, that's probably what I would recommend you try. Because we allow it in a couple different districts, the way to approach this would be to say, okay, we're going to create a new zoning classification for hospitals and call it, hospital H1, whatever you want to call it, hospital district. In that way, you move the hospital into that district, rezone it, and then you remove the opportunity for other zoning classifications to have a hospital setting. That doesn't necessarily prevent somebody from coming in and building a hospital. They just have to specifically do it by a zoning change. So what that would do would allow for, like we had with the container home, a process to do that, so that there would be an opportunity for people to vote on or speak on that, and then the planning commission and a city council vote would be needed in order to allow another hospital to come into that zoning district qualification. Because the city council is supportive of doing something that they made it very clear. However, they do not want to limit clinics. Clinics are a completely different animal. They're really just concerned with hospitals, which are defined in our code as having overnight residential kind of settings and then surgical settings. So those two things are sort of the deal that separates it from a clinic. They didn't want us to touch clinics at all. The idea there is that we don't want to restrict anybody's ability to compete. We think that's important. Obviously, trying to balance out the two things is a tricky issue. So that's kind of where it is. Obviously there's financial implications here. There are, people who have, there's just strong feelings about the hospital and kind of how that works in this community too. But, overall, I think we're invested in it. And I know that the city council at least has spent a lot of time, effort and energy to make sure that we have a hospital here. And I think they don't want to end up in a situation like Harrington, where there's no hospital, no medical care locally. So, again, if you were to ask me what we should do or how we should proceed with that, I would recommend creating a specific zoning class for hospitals. And to do that, we'd have to set up it would be go through a public process like we did when we created the district too. So there'd be a notification and we have that public hearings and there's a whole process to do that. But that would be what I would recommend if you wanted to do that. We're just here to talk about that, whether or not that's a good idea, if that's something you'd recommend, how you'd want to proceed with that.
What's the current hospital zone at?
It is CS, which is Commercial Highway District. It's adjacent to industrial, which also I believe industrial also allows for hospital space. Really there's a couple that don't allow hospitals specifically. One of them ironically is the downtown district. And then as the residential areas, it's allowed because you do see hospitals tucked in residential areas often.
So if we wanted to move in that direction, we would not even be able at this point to vote on implementing that, but we could ask staff to prepare a zoning or whatever
Yeah.
something for us to vote on at a later date.
Yeah. To consider and vote on.
Head in that direction.
So what is all included in a clinic?
Yeah.
I mean, can that be?
Effectively, anything that's not overnight residential, well, overnight stay of patients and surgical, I think it qualifies it.
Someone is under anesthesia,
Right.
where they can't self.
So they can open a club.
Render someone incapable of self-rescue.
So in his letter, he talks about many surrounding communities have adopted it. Which communities is he talking about?
Yeah, Lindsborg has something that's not real strong. Newton's probably the biggest one.
Okay.
That has something.
McPherson one time was considering one, but I don't know if they did anything.
I don't have anything on McPherson. It'll be something to look into. I would suspect it's similarly situated.
It seems to me that if the hospital's concern is the loss of the profit-making centers, that's the lab services, the physical rehab, the X-ray, serology, MRIs, all that stuff, which all fall under clinics. So I don't see how you're really, I don't think the overnight patients in the surgery is that much of a profit center for them.
Yes and no. I think a typical surgery, maybe not, but things that would be considered outpatient things like colonoscopy, for example, in a profit center. But you have to be rendered unconscious for that, so it wouldn't be allowed in a clinic.
You don't have to be.
Typically, you want to be rendered unconscious. They also do a swing bed program, which is a rehabilitation program, which is pretty profitable for them. So there are some things that they're restricted or that they would have an advantage on.
Emergency room, maybe?
Emergency room would be another thing too. I mean, you really.
You could have one in a clinic.
Theoretical, yes, you could, but.
Highly unlikely.
Probably unlikely. You may have something like an emergent care facility, like you have walk-in clinics and stuff. A lot of those have popped up in a lot of different areas, and some of those are private. So,
Actually, I think typical emergency rooms very use anesthesia.
Rarely, but they're typically,
Patients may come in unable to self.
no, that's true.
Well, the advantage of emergency room is it's available 24/7.
24/7.
Opposed to clinics that usually aren't.
Yeah,
It's where EMS is gonna take you.
Yeah.
And they're gonna go to that.
Right.
For because they have surgical facilities in
Right.
the event that you would actually need it.
But at this point, we would just be recommending that you start the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I would envision this taking a little while. I mean,
Oh.
it took a while to do the last one we did. I mean, so we'd have to be pretty thoughtful in how we create this. And maybe there's other things we want to put in there. Maybe you want to redefine what a clinic can allow too. I mean, that would be an option while you have it open, you're making changes, you could do that.
Well, Gary, that's their moneymaker, I
Yeah.
guess, and that's what they're worried about. And we use the hospital quite often, so I hate to.
Yeah. I've come to find that people either really
I'm a
love it
frequent
or
flyer.
kind of hate it. I don't know why that is. It's pretty divisive, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
So,
there are people who are very pro hospital, and there are people who do not like it and choose not to go there, and that's fine. They have options. I mean, there are
My
other options.
question for them would be, what if they need it in the middle of the night, then we didn't have it? That would be my concern
Yeah,
for
okay.
my family or for anybody.
We're fortunate we've got it. I
Yeah.
mean, after,
Absolutely.
but
What the
there's,
city
but
went
there's
through
also a hospital
to
10
get it
miles
put
away
there.
in Marion,
or to keep a hospital.
20 miles away in McPherson. You know, so.
I know Tabor though that's a big thing for Tabor
Mhm.
that's one of their, I think they have to have a hospital within a certain, am I wrong on that? I could be wrong. I shouldn't say
I
that.
don't know if that's, I don't
I
know.
don't know if that's right or
certainly a
not,
huge
but I know
benefit.
it's a huge, yeah.
To be fair, I've never heard of a hospital that didn't have those really for it and against it in terms of problems.
Right.
It'd be one of those issues that
It's just
someone has a bad
business.
experience and then that spreads.
just like a restaurant.
It goes, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Not saying it couldn't be better, but I'm just saying it's one of those can't win.
Well, I would make a motion that we would proceed. And I don't know the right words, but proceed for you to explore changing,
Creating.
creating.
Hospital
yeah,
district
then do
or
the-
Hospital district. Is that the way you want to go? Hospital district to make the most sense? That's what made.
Does
Clear.
anybody from public want to make any comments or? Okay. Give me
Are you
opportunity.
making a distinction between hospital district and hospital zone?
Right, yeah,
Yes.
it would be a
Right.
hospital zoning.
No.
We'd create one specifically for that. You'd have an opportunity, when we got into it, you'd have an opportunity to maybe redefine what that is, if it's something you wanted to change, say you didn't want to let x-rays or lab services or something in a clinic setting, you could do that. I mean, that would be something you could do.
Like right now, I think it's the MRI that's mobile.
Am I right?
That, you know, I mean, it could come into a clinic and do its thing.
Yeah, good.
So,
Absolutely.
If I remember correctly, we have a motion. We have not yet had a second. We should have
Oh,
gotten that before we.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, further questions or discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to see a few.
yeah, put some
details,
options, yeah.
options in there.
As far as what it needs to look like, we'll probably model it after somebody else, because we don't
Right.
need to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, I think that's probably the most straightforward way to do it. There would be other ways you could approach it, but I just think that makes it more complicated.
I mean, like you said earlier, the competition thing, we've got to be careful not to shut down competition.
Mhm.
I mean, it'd be like saying, well, we've got a hardware store, we're not gonna allow any other hardware stores. You know.
Don't want to do that. But you can make it to where they have to apply to do a certain zoning classification or whatever it is. I'm not saying you're putting up hurdles, but you're making a process.
Well, it gives the hospital an opportunity to come in and explain what impact it would have on them and allow the weighing of that impact
Mhm.
to the good of the community.
That's exactly right.
Okay. We ready to vote?
Yep.
One more chance. Any other questions or comments? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion has carried. Thank you. We'll move on to city administrator's report, then I'll open it up for one more time for anything else that anybody wants to talk about.
Okay, so we just wanted to give you kind of an update on, well, it's not really an update, you haven't really heard about it. We've been talking with Mennonite Housing.
You mean the thing that was.
The thing
It's in
is
the
in the
paper,
paper.
yeah. So Mennonite Housing has been talking with us to do 24 units of, it's called we call it workforce housing. It's an income-based thing, but it's not age-based. So they're talking about 24 units, which would be 12 duplexes. It has a clubhouse and some other amenities, playground amenities, things like that. It's one of the city's strategic priorities to add more housing or to make available more housing. It's not the only thing we're looking at doing, but it is one of the things one of those areas that is really hard to kind of address. And so right now we're in the process of putting together an option agreement for them. They're going to be going out for tax credit application in January. And so, that's a little bit of a process too. One of the things with this property, I wasn't here when they originally platted it, but it's kind of odd how they did it. Whatever reason, they made the road and all the easements there into its own actual parcel, which I've never seen before. So that really probably needs to be addressed. I think this whole thing is going to have to get replatted. And so we'll all have the opportunity to go through the platting process together. It's super fun. So we'll have that opportunity if and when this project moves forward. So it's a little bit of an oddball deal, but it would be phase 1 of 2 potentially. So if phase 1 goes well, they can turn around and basically duplicate phase 1, add more units up to, I think 30 is what they sort of talked about in the second one. So that would be 54 total units of workforce housing, which is really a huge need for us. So you'll have a role in that process, and that'll be fun. We'll walk you through
I have a
planning.
map that shows where they're
Yeah.
looking.
I can actually bring it up here put it on Eagle View. It's a little easier to see. User elsewhere. I'm going to terminate somebody's session. Okay. So this is Orchard Drive right here. This is Dollar General. The area we're talking about, CarQuest right here, is this area. So phase 1 would basically be everything which would be south of this road. Now this road, normally when you plat it, is just platted as a road. This is actual property that's got its own parcel description, and it's a little odd. So that would probably have to be changed as part of this process. When we replat it, we'll probably look at moving that and eliminating it. They're actually not going to use a public street. They're going to have a private drive, private infrastructure there. So the city will have to extend water and sewer into here, but it won't have a street, which is a huge savings for the city to mess with, really. And then, phase 2 would be sort of these outlots in some of this area. I'm not sure if phase 1 will end up taking all of this, but it would be kind of up and around. Couple things that have been brought up there's Hickory, which is kind of platted through here. Obviously that street does not exist, and this gentleman's got stuff kind of piled all over it. That was an issue that was being addressed. This is an older aerial, but is still fairly accurate, I think, Ben. Maybe he's been cleaning it up though. We've been on him on code enforcement side to clean that up. Yeah, so that's kind of I don't have a layout yet. We're not at that point, but
Access would only be from Orchard Drive and not from Third Street. Well, I guess, it doesn't even go.
Third Street's pretty far south yet.
Does the property extend to Third Street on the west end there? Is that what it looked like?
No.
Hickory's clear on the end.
Hickory's clear on the end, yeah. Third Street's right down here. So we're still a good ways away from that, but we would probably, as we go through this and replat this, we would probably want to keep some access to come through here. Maybe, I guess it'd be right here.
You wouldn't extend Hickory south.
I don't think
would
we
you?
would go south with Hickory. Well, that would be a problem to address if and when it wanted to develop that way. Kind of an odd, well, I don't know if it's as odd as it may seem on the face to put it out in a commercial district. One of the things with it, it's got the tax credit application is proximity to amenities is one of the things that gets scored on it. So being close to the Dollar General, being close to the pharmacy. The city actually in our trail and sidewalk plan has trails that'll run up here, so there'll be pedestrian access as well. No, it just was one of the sites that made sense for us at the end of the day. It's pretty low barrier to entry to get the utilities in there. If you actually go out and look at this is really very high elevation wise compared to this, so makes it easy for sewer, makes it easy for water. Yeah, so that's kind of the plan. We'll see. January 5th is when the initial application is due. The Kansas Housing Resource Corporation will make a determination if they want to proceed with that. There's a second application that has to go in, and that is in March. We would know probably by May if it got awarded, and then kind of move forward from there.
And that's currently zoned as commercial.
It is, well,
Or-
no, I think it's ag, actually. Chunk of this is ag.
It's still ag.
Yeah, I think so. It will need to get rezoned. It'll need to get replatted, which will all be things that you guys will have fun in.
Any cows on it?
No cows. Yeah, no cows.
So is this any different than when they wanted to do the housing out at Willow Glen? Remember, were you here during that time?
I don't know what that was.
Before it was? No, well, there were a bunch of empty lots and they were just gonna give them, the
Oh.
city was gonna give them to Mennonite Housing.
Oh, well,
Well, that's been several years by now,
Okay.
I think. Yeah, quite a few, in fact.
They were gonna do some low income housing up there and then, yeah.
yeah, no, these are duplex. These would be owned by Mennonite Housing. They're gonna be sold. Then they're new property management on them, so it'll actually be like its own neighborhood.
Other than the lots north of Third Street, there's really no other place with enough acreage, is there?
to do all of it.
That's closer to central business type.
Not really, no.
What do they consider close? Cause I feel like Hillsboro's pretty small.
Correct. Yeah.
Good point.
Fair point. Well, one of the big things with it was the city, they needed the city to be able to control it too, to get the option agreement.
Okay.
That just expedites the process, so.
Have they done
this is
anything,
the best city property that's like that, yeah.
they anything like that? I assume they've done things like this in other communities.
Oh, yeah.
Like where nearby?
And they're doing a project right now in Abilene. That's the furthest north they go. They do a lot of stuff in Wichita. They've got a lot in Wichita, but Newton's got a similar type project. Valley Center, there's a couple other places. They have one in Coffeyville of all places. Yeah, they just sort of, that one was one they inherited. They didn't build that one. And then they do property management. The city of Wichita has a lot of housing through their housing office that they're the property managers for. So they've done a lot of it in Wichita. Newton's probably the closest.
And heard of them, I assume they have a pretty good track record. of
Yeah,
what
they've
they've
been
done.
around for since the 70s. They actually started to do housing rehabilitation. They did basically home improvements for people. It was built out of the 6 Mennonite churches that are in Wichita. They started it and it just kind of took on a life of its own, and now it's a significantly larger organization than when it started. So that project moving forward, city council is going to review an option agreement on Tuesday. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know, it'd be a nice addition. I think.
Yeah.
There was another thing I wanted to bring up to you guys.
Our involvement would basically just be replatting.
Replatting and zoning, yeah. Be all in one fell swoop, probably. I think that unless there's I think I have some questions for me about anything out there. all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. One more opportunity. Anybody have anything else that's come to mind that we need to talk about or question you want to ask about? If not, we'll deem the meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.
All right.